Angela, would you do the roll call for us?
Chair Lavin?
Here.
Vice Chair Wood? Member Lynch?
Here.
Member Gibson?
Here.
Member Jones?
Okay. All right, our workshop items are number 1, to welcome the Douglas Neighborhood Advisory Board members, and I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Wright because she has a list and she'll go over everything, okay?
Okay, so I will go ahead and call Raymond Lee, John Durr, Raymond Mobley, Ronald Wilson, Yvonne Andrews, Elder James, J.R. Reed, Patricia Dixon, and Jessica Hall. We want to thank you all for stepping forward to wanting to serve for our advisory board. Our next meeting will be on July the 19th. At that time, we will have our city attorney do an overview of the sunshine laws and provide an overall tutorial. And at that time, everyone will be sworn in.
That's at 5:30.
At 5:30, they'll swear them in and do the sunshine.
Just so they know to be here early.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So on the 19th, it starts at 5:30, and we'll swear everybody in. There was a question from one member who's already had the sunshine law through another board she serves on and wants to know if she needs to be here for that sunshine law class or portion.
I don't believe so.
Okay. So we could swear her in after, like, if she came at 6, we could get her sworn in afterwards.
I don't think I think once you've had it, because it's a yearly thing, I don't think you need to take it multiple times.
Okay.
She would need to be here, but then she could come at 6 o'clock, be here when we swear in.
Okay, Miss Andrews, did you hear that? You don't
Oh,
have to.
No, wait a minute. This is for her?
Yeah.
No. She would need to be here for the training.
You got to do the whole thing, right?
And it might be a good idea to have everyone sworn in at the beginning of the meeting. That way it's on the regular meeting minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. So if we have it at the end, then it'll be like the first item at 6 or so. That way.
Have everybody sworn in after doing the sunshine law. Okay, so the plan is the sunshine law portion of the meeting will start at 5:30, and then about 6, when that's done, we'll do the swear-in of the advisory board. So if you've done sunshine law within the last year, if you've done it through the city, you don't have to come back and do that portion again, okay? Because there's a couple board members in here that won't have to do that, okay? So, okay? Just show up at 6 to get sworn in, okay? All right.
Is that evil
Okay. Well, do you want us to swear you in at 5:30? We can certainly accommodate that. Is that better if the swear-ins you have another conflicting meeting is the problem? Okay, so can we do the swear-in at the beginning at the 5:30, and then those parties that need to leave can leave?
It's okay. We can adjust the meeting time to 5:30,
Okay.
and then that might. And I mean, perhaps we could even ask Courtney if she would want to do that at 5. I know she said she had more time on that day,
Mm-hmm.
so it's possible maybe we could do the tutorial at 5 and do the swearing at 5:30 with a regular meeting.
So let us check with the attorney, and we will communicate with you Monday and with everybody and firm up what time to be here. Okay? Is that good? Can we do that? Okay.
Okay.
That sounds good. So we're going to either be here at 5 or 5:30, 2 weeks from tonight, to swear in this advisory board. Okay. All right. So that issue is taken care of. We have a few members that aren't here, so will you reach out to them on Monday?
Sure.
There's 2 or 3. Let's see. We've got 2, 4. So there's 3 members that aren't here. Miss Dixon, Elder James.
J.R. Reed.
No, Mr. Reed's here.
Oh, he's hiding back there.
He is. He's hiding behind
He's
this
hiding
wall.
back there. Who's the other one?
Mobley.
Mobley.
Okay.
I
You
ain't
need
seen
new
him
glasses.
hiding back there.
We thank you for your willingness to serve on this board. It's a really important piece of being able to move that area forward, to have input from people that many of you have grown up there, you've lived in this area your whole life. It's really important for us to have your guidance on how to do what we can do to move that part of the community forward, okay? Thank you so much for being willing. The next thing that's on our agenda tonight is grant application policies and procedures, and I'll turn this again over to you, Ms. Wright.
Yeah, attached to the agenda is the memo, and just generally I kind of outlined some of the things that we've kind of seen in the past 3 months since I've been here. And, you know, overall, of course, we're looking at our commercial grants, our residential grants, and also in the definition is, of course, the nonprofit grant process. Since some communities have that program and some don't. And so with that, we've kind of like gone through, kind of highlighted based on our conversations and our meetings and the documents that we have, some of the things that it seems like we are striving for as a CRA. In terms of aesthetic improvements, it seems like the desire is to have true facade improvements, you know, not so much in, you know, overall renovations or mechanical equipment or roofs and whatnot. So just kind of generally outlining those, wanting, you know, to kind of start that conversation to see if this is also what the board's desire is, and so that way we can kind of streamline and really define our process. So when we have grant applications and we're preparing a staff report or giving you all a recommendation, that we're kind of all on the same page. So, and then with that, you know, there are some changes that have been proposed. In the past, the grants were much larger, 10, 15,000, and they were kind of veering from the facade intent behind this program. So with this kind of bringing it back at 5,000, we're trying to set a price where, or an award that's going to incentivize these improvements. The intent is to kind of leverage these improvements, not so much to fund them fully. And so with that, you know, we're recommending reviewing those amounts and capping it at 5,000, setting it, you know, specific criteria. That way, when an application comes in, you know, we can say, you know, is this an aesthetic improvement? Is this a true facade? You know, is it meeting these criteria? That way, you know, we can recommend approval or denial based on very objective criteria for everyone. And then, as far as the residential, you know, also has been reduced. In the past, it was 5,000. We've had some discussion with, you know, the county and different folks about, you know, are we, you know, and we've looked at Gainesville, what Gainesville's doing. Gainesville's also doing a paint program. And so with that, we didn't want to do away with the award entirely, but we thought by doing also trying to incentivize a facade or a curb appeal by going with paint-only programs, that we could continue to provide that service to help. You know, a coat of paint does so much, and yet, you know, these are things that we can do as a CRA to kind of continue to advance, you know, the overall appeal of the CRA for a much larger, you know, group of residents. And so anyway, so instead of the $5,000 grant, we have recommended a $500 paint program. And some of the things that we've talked about is, you know, maybe utilizing our local businesses. That way we're also providing business in town. You know, otherwise, you know, and then as far as the nonprofit grant process, we could look at, and I've set it up as in either or, we could either do the same as we're doing with the residential grants and do a paint only, or we could set specific criteria, say, you know, our focus is on youth and community programs or affordable housing. And if a nonprofit demonstrates how they're achieving these objectives that are critical to our goals in the CRA, then they'd be eligible for the $5,000 award with the commercial grant also. So those are just kind of an overview of all of that. And
Okay, should we go through it by each section, like commercial, and have a discussion, or just do it collectively as a whole?
I think starting with commercial and, you know, taking that as one item and then doing residential and then nonprofit, just because there's so many moving parts.
Okay, so I guess we'll start with the commercial grants. The recommendations here are to reduce the amount to $5,000 and to specifically spell out, you know, what facade grants are, which would be painting and pressure washing, awnings, externally lit signage, and gooseneck lighting, murals and ADA accessibility items such as concrete ramps into businesses, and then another item would be street furniture, for decoration. Those are the categories that you're looking to really classify. And I think some of that came from what we see Gainesville doing, because they're pretty clear about what they'll fund. And it helps when we go to the county commission if we have a good, clear objective of what our CRA's intention is with the facades. So I'll open that up for discussion. If there's a commissioner that would like to
So in
speak.
the application sheet, right off the bat, you would have 1 through 5. That would be on it, and you would check that this is going to be a painting, it's going to be an audit. So the very first thing is, when the person comes in, they're going to have to designate which of these 1 through 5 it is.
Yeah.
And then you'll go into more specific as far as what they're doing. So if I want you to help pay for my new HVAC system or whatever, that's not on it.
Yeah,
There's
there's no
nothing-
longer another blank.
That's what I'm saying. So I mean, it would, and I'm not trying to do whatever, but I'm just saying this would eliminate those things that would have to fit within these categories.
Yeah.
Commissioner James, do you have any questions or feedback?
Not at this point, because believe it or not, I read this, but I haven't had time to really sit and think of it. Just think it through. But
Anybody?
it sounded pretty reasonable to me when I was reading it. And I like the fact that we are changing some of these limits, because I too felt at one time that some of them was extremely high. And I think I mentioned that at one of our meetings before. So I sort of like that idea. But I think we're moving in the right direction with it.
Anybody from the audience care to discuss? Yes, sir.
Ronald Wilson, Southeast Blackstone. Do these have to be residences, or do they have to be commercial establishments to qualify for the grant?
For this portion that we're discussing, the first portion is the commercial portion. There's actually going to be different categories, and right now we're talking about the portion that is the commercial portion, trying to set some defined limits on the amount of money and the types of awards that we want to fund from our CRA. So this first section we're talking about is the commercial portion.
Residential will be next, Ron. We'll talk to residential next.
I feel that these limits are very reasonable. I would like to see us put something in that language as well about trying to purchase from the local businesses that may have these, like the paint and the materials. A lot of this maybe they can't get locally, but I think it's important for us to establish that we really want to support those local businesses, especially the ones that are in our CRA district that could provide. So if it were a painting one, I'd really like to see those products purchased in town, if at all possible. That would be my opinion. I think this is good. I think it's clear. I think it's gonna address some of the concerns that the county commission had when Attorney Johnson had to go to them with the CRA stuff. There were concerns that there wasn't enough guideline, and I think this is a good direction for us to go in. So does anybody want to make a motion on this portion of it, or should we go through the discussion of all of it and then make a motion? Okay, so we don't make any motions. Okay. All right.
Discussion.
So then I guess we'll go on to the residential portion.
And what I can do, I can put together an application that outlines all of these things that we've discussed and bring it to, and you all can vote on it at the 7/19.
At the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that would be good if you could bring one which would show how these are outlined. And I think B addresses what we talked about also, as far as the size of these businesses. The storefront, that's been an issue. Storefront back. And this is very specific where it has to be in order to qualify. So, yeah, I think if you could bring one with this language in it, checkoff marks, so we could actually see it, I think it would be, I'm a visual, I gotta look at the paper. I know to be able to make it more helpful.
Okay.
All right.
And everybody's comfortable with these limits and these definitions? Okay. All right, so then we'll move on to the residential paint-only grants, which Christina has proposed to us. There's one thing I don't like personally in this, and I talked to her earlier today. I don't really like the match. I think that creates a barrier for somebody that maybe doesn't have the money to paint their house. And I think I'd rather see us do something like, and she told me what to say, where they could get some sort of a voucher to go to one of these stores in town that had the paint and get their paint and their supplies. And that way they don't even have to come up with the cash and wait for reimbursement, because we already have established business relationships with those businesses, and it would allow people that maybe wouldn't have the cash to paint their house to be more apt to apply for the grant and get that done. That's my personal. Commissioners, do you have any suggestions on the residential?
I hadn't thought about it that way. It could possibly be a hindrance for some of the people. But as I said, I hadn't thought about it.
How are you going to determine? Are you going to bring in their wage statement?
Well, that's what.
My point is, otherwise, all I'm saying is, and I'm going to go the worst case scenario, so please make sure you're taking this in the right deal. Everybody can come in and say, I can't pay for it, and they all get $500, and we're painting the neighborhood. I think they need a stake in the game, even if it's half. If it's, if they pay half of it, they want $500, they got to pay $250. I think they need some stake in the game. Otherwise, I mean, you could have a use of the system, so to speak. I hate to say that, but I do think you need to have some stake in the game. So if we're going to give them 500, if we're going to give them 500, make them come up with 250. They don't have to do the match. They have to have some stake in the game. Otherwise, what criteria are you going to use to determine the hardship?
Right. Well, that's what I didn't want them to have to. I didn't want them to have to show us a hardship. I felt like that's a barrier, and would prevent someone that might be indeed worthy for this kind of assistance and meet the criteria to not come do it because they would feel like that was a barrier, that they had to prove that they were, that they were whatever the wording was. So, maybe a lower match to it, just, perhaps one of the things that Christina mentioned too is that maybe we can compile a list of volunteer organizations in the community that might help, with either labor or maybe even help partner with, for someone that truly has a need. We might be able to get them a list of organizations or something like that if there is a significant need. And there is a program through Alachua Habitat called A Brush with Kindness, or A Brush of Kindness. And so that is another paint program that is available. I have not been able to yet make contact with them, but they have a critical home repair program and this paint program within the Habitat organization. And so we're hoping that we can maybe do some partnering with them, down the road, and that might be where, they could get some sort of assistance with labor or something through that program. So, does anybody from the audience want to speak to the residential grant?
I'm just looking at this and this is what you all have discussed so far. In reference to the case by case hardship consideration division has something already has an application or requirements already been put in place to determine, not how to determine if the person has a hardship. I would like to see something or find out how that would be determined. I see where it's going to be case by case. If that, if this is approved, I would just like to see that. And as far as the match, I can see both sides. I can see what you were saying, and I can also see, what Mr. Famous is saying in reference to match. But I can also see where that could be a hindrance for, because of, I guess, the quality of income of the people who actually reside in the Douglas community. I can also see that for some people being a real hardship where, I don't know how much the match would actually be, but that could probably disqualify or cause a person not to even be able to participate in the paint, in the program. And also, I was listening to what you were saying about I was thinking about the Habitat for Humanity. They have that sweat equity program. Where you some kind of labor into what you're having done. Maybe they could be formulate a group of people who will be willing, especially for those who are elderly and disabled, who are willing to put in sweat equity. For those people, some people may be able to participate and put sweat equity into their own home. And also with the Brush of Kindness, that program, I'm familiar with it because being on the housing board, having to talk to a lot of those people about helping people in the community with their homes. I know that one of their requirements is that they will paint, and they'll paint for free, but the home has to be in good physical condition on the outside. It has, and so is that one of the things that we're going to be considering in this grant, or do you just paint over a house that's in need of repair, or the house is in need of painting, or there's repairs that needs to be done on the outside? So just some things I'm going to throw out there, and if you could maybe discuss that or address some of those things, I would appreciate it.
I believe and the language isn't all in here, but there were some, like it had to be pressure clean, there had to be no code violations, some parameters. But the reality is, if it's an older home and there's wood that needs to be replaced or things like that, which tends to happen, I live in an older home, those repairs should be done because it's wasteful not to do it. So I would agree with you on that. And that's an area where, like when we were discussing it, is maybe partnering with those other agencies that could help with that. The CRA fund or grant could be used as the final piece to do the paint, because there isn't enough grant money to do substantial repairs, and that isn't the intent of the grants are for facade, they're not for structural repair or maintenance items, right? I mean, that's the wording that I had seen. So, but those are very good questions. And she does have in here, they're required to pressure wash prior to painting. I do know that something I had seen, it said, no code violations. The house had to be not in a situation where there was code violations. So
yeah, it's possible too, if to streamline it, we could waive the match if either there is a volunteer or it's an owner builder that just isn't going to hire a contractor. I mean, there's other ways, I think, without making it like we could set the policy and then later on look at, it can always be modified, like if next year we decide that there's a lot of homes that we want to repaint, we can look at, some of these other resources too. I mean, we can evolve, but I think for now, just setting it in a way that's overall workable for the, and then we can revisit it next year again. Or
I don't want you to end up with a lot of additional complications, that's where you're at now, where people are coming to you and it's not very clear, it's too vague, and that's the intention of us trying to set better guidelines, is to make your job easier, and so that the community has a clear understanding of what the program is, and, you know, the miscommunication or the lack of concise guidelines has led us that we really need to do this, and that, you know, you're the one that's going to take the brunt of it. So, you know, we have to try to do this with the intention of making it as clear as possible so that the citizens understand, and that you're not going to have people angry with you because they didn't understand the way that we presented it. So, you know, that would be my say-so. You know, maybe we could start with a particular way and then revisit it in 6 months or next fiscal year, or, you know, whatever time frame. I don't think there's a lot of money in the grant fund right now for the rest of this fiscal year, so I'm not certain it will become even a question at this point. And so we could do something and then just see how it works out next fiscal year, and then if it's mid-year, maybe reevaluate is definitely an option. Yes, sir.
Case, we looked at Gainesville, what Gainesville's doing. They're doing a $500. I think there's one neighborhood that they're doing $750.
When they look at the spaces, they pick a small amount and say what it would cost contractor to paint and make that determination on what it would cost contractor to paint and determine from there. I'm saying for my house, $500 for paint.
And the idea, I think in general, is to try to incentivize that. You know, like if we were thinking about, you know, if there was a match, like say a $500 match, and it might be the difference between somebody being able to hire someone to do it versus not doing it because they're not able to do it. You know, so we're trying to find that, you know, point to where we're incentivizing it to happen. And so that's just kind of what's standard out there right now.
And the other issue, the reason we're addressing this, is the county commission was very not happy with the amount of residential grants that the CRA had done, because they felt like it should be a driver to bring economic development into the area and to be geared towards the commercial. And that was one of their biggest criticisms when Mr. Booth, I think it was Mr. Booth and Attorney Johnson went down there to them. So that is something that we are looking in December. We have to go back before the county commission for an extension of our CRA, and we want to be able to give really good guidelines, and we want them to see that we're utilizing this program in the manner that they want, which is a facade to clean up areas, to create economic development. You know, that's one of the drivers. And so that is one of the reasons that we have to really limit residentially what we're doing, is because it's really a driver of an economic to revitalize the economy in the area is what this is. And so, and I agree with you, and I told her that, you know, when I had my house done, he didn't even paint the whole house, it was $1,000. But again, we don't want to go in the business of painting houses. We want to try to help people to be able to do it. Is the intent, I think. Mr. Lee, you had a question? Mm-hmm.
They don't have money to match it.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever has CRA have given them money. All those that have put in application have a chance of getting it. So let the neighbor get their house painted.
Good idea.
The two things, they have to get their house painted. They have to come together in the neighborhood to learn who the neighbors are.
That's a great idea. It really is, you know, because then you're working as partners. That's a really good idea. So, yeah, you get to do something with that idea.
We can waive the match then if you know, that's...
I mean, if they can't paint I mean, if they can't paint, they need to match it. Maybe not match it all, but if it's fair, we need somebody else to come in and paint it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can still put away, but they have to raise it up some kind of, just don't get off free. You gotta put something into it.
Right.
Nothing in this world is
I think it's helpful, and I agree. I think the thing here is when you said $500, I understand right now would be a match, it'd be $1,000 towards painting the house. And I just want to make sure I clear that on me. So I think what you're talking there, I think is great, but I think there has to be something down because the commission changes. You have new people on here. I think chime in. This person gets it, this person doesn't get it. To me, there has to be something very specific, and I don't know how we can do that. If you say that you're going to do the sweat equity stuff and you're going to do it, that's written into it. What I don't want to do is have something where it's vague, where one person can claim, well, why did they not have to do the match? I had to do the match type of deal to where you get into this on the deal. I think the other thing when you look into this one here, when you start talking the money, we're going to require pressure wash. Those aren't free. Somebody's going to have to rent a pressure washer. So if you go out there and rent a pressure washer and do your house, I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm assuming, say, $100 to rent one and use it for a day. I don't know. No, not that much?
not that yes.
Obviously, you sell, I've done it quite a bit. But, so I mean, I think there again, if we have, and I understand why, because you don't want to just throw it in. But I agree with that. But that's going to cut into the paint. So if you get the $500, $1,000, if you got 150 or 200, whatever it is, to get, all of a sudden now your paint just dropped 20% type of deal. So, and this is, let me just clarify that so I understand this. The house is now, so if I'm a homeowner, all I'm getting is paint. I'm not getting a new roof. I'm not getting shutters on the front or anything like that. Okay. I agree. I agree. But I think those are still some issues, I think, in here that I don't know how you do the match. I agree with you. I think there needs to be something in it. The pressure washer, I mean, how are you going to know they pressure washed it? I mean, I guess they got to sign off on it. Somebody going to go out there and watch them do it? I don't know. I don't mean to be whatever, but yeah, you know more than I do. If it's a couple $100, that's 20% of your match without the paint. Something to think about.
And instead of the hardship provision, maybe we could do a sweat equity provision, and then just have, if somebody's willing to say, because if we put on there, like it has to be done within 3 months of the award, and we pay Bennett's or Ace directly, and then it's not done, then they're responsible for reimbursing. So there's something.
You ain't No. Well, you got to figure something out here. I mean, that's, and I don't mean to be whatever, but if somebody's going to be negligent and not, well, let's just take that. Are you going to go out to them legally now for the $400? You're going to put a lien against their house? You're going to do the whole bit?
Well, then we would have to do the match, because as we do now, they get the receipts and we reimburse. But if if the hardship is if there is a hardship and somebody doesn't have that up front, then that's kind of stopping that right there. So
the watchword of the day, is that there has to be specificity, no matter what we do. And so that Christina, when she's implementing a program, that everybody is being treated the same.
Right.
That's really the critique, part of the critique. And then the focus is more toward the commercial-driven improvements as opposed to the residential. But there's got to be that specificity as to what it is that we're doing and how we're running the program. Otherwise, it's just a nightmare, especially on the audit side.
Right.
So it becomes a lot easier, I think, as Commissioner Jameson says. If it's a dollar number, it's just real easy. That's an easy. Mm-hmm. If we're going to do some kind of labor sweat equity match, how do we do it? How do we gauge it? And there's ways to do that. I think we can do, but it's going to have to be very specific as to how we implement that, with the knowledge that if that money flows out from CRA, the likelihood of getting the money back, I tend to going after some of these issues is not something that I think politically the city would want to do, number one. Number two, as council, there's really not a lot of benefit associated with that. Most of these homes are going to be homesteaded. And so even if we got a judgment, it would not attach to the home. So there's no lien that can be placed on the property. We're kind of swimming against the stream in that whole process. So I think dealing with these things at the front end is going to be absolutely critical.
Okay.
A well-run program.
Okay. Mr. Lee, you wanted to share?
I have a question. Is it possible to set up an account stores here in town and not actually let the paint go out until they're ready to paint? And the CRA don't pay the bill until they go pick it up.
She had, actually, there are accounts at the stores here in town already, and it would actually, bookkeeping-wise, be easier for her, to do that type of arrangement, where they can go and get the, whatever this.
Maybe I can walk in the store, this big deal, I'm ready to pick my house, and the CRA is going to pick up, then they make their phone calls to her.
There's some sort of voucher she would give you.
Yeah, so that they can get it in.
Mm-hmm.
They have X amount of days to get it done.
Right, and that's what she said.
Yeah, and perhaps because instead of, the money wouldn't be released to the applicant, it would be released to the store. So if the house wasn't painted, I mean, it's not like the money's being released to it's being paid to the store. So if the paint is not used, I mean, you're right, it would be difficult to recoup, but it wouldn't be like, there would be the incentive because, otherwise there would just be, 5-gallon buckets of paint or whatnot, and then nobody would have, so I mean, I think if we were to do a sweat equity type of thing, that probably would be, I don't know how else, as far as, because the match is perfect, because, that way we're getting receipts, we're reimbursing, and then it's finished, but otherwise, because you're not paying the individual directly, we'd be paying, if we had base or benefits.
And we got to make this as easy and clear and concise as possible. And so,
would it make sense to do the 250 match, at least initially, and then review it in 6 months maybe? If there is a number of instances where the projects are not getting done because of some hardship reason, you look at it and we can't fully implement the program because of the fact that Christina would be able to track that, and when she reports to it says we missed out on 10 houses because people were unable to come up with a 250 match requirements. And maybe start the process and see if there are any, because that's the easiest way for her to implement.
Can I ask a question? Maybe I'm missing the whole point here, I don't know. But from what I'm hearing, you're only going to give me the paint, nothing else, just the paint. Is there not certain times of the year when the county is giving away paint, you can go get all the paint you need, or as much of the paint as you need? Why do I have to do this if that's available? What am I missing here?
Is that a surplus paint program? Or
More than likely.
Okay.
What happens is that at the Levita Brown Recycling Center, my understanding of the program is that when you're cleaning up your garage, you've got some old paint that is there, you take it to Levita Brown's Recycling Center, and then they collect all that into a big canister and remix it, and then periodically they have
Is that what
come
it is?
pick it up. That's what I understand the program to do.
Okay.
And so
I was just curious.
You go there, and then they'll have it remixed and ready to go, and it's.
I told them they won't.
yes, Mr. Durr.
Gloria,
Uh-huh.
they say they give it out once a year,
Mm-hmm.
but you can go over there any day And if they got what you want, they'll go ahead and get it. You don't have to wait that one day give out.
Is that the solid waste department of the county? And I believe this paint only included the supplies needed for painting, like the brushes and the rollers, you know, the materials that you would need, whatever, you know, a paint roller pan, the roller covers, you know, any of those supplies that would be associated with painting.
I could go buy it if I got the paint.
So if someone had the paint, perhaps we could use it to incentivize to paint, a professional painter to paint the house instead of materials.
Yeah, you can set the thing up so like Mr. Walker said here, see how it flows. I mean, you may get bombarded, you may get nothing, I don't know. Maybe we need to advertise the fact where the pre-paint is and make sure people understand. So if they truly want to paint, and they can go get the paint, and they can come in here and give me $100 on the deal because I need to buy paint supplies, sheets, brushes, and so forth.
And I'd like to see us market all of these, even the commercial, because a lot of, you know, this is, you know, to make full advantage, you know, and to really get the result, let everybody know about it, you know, maybe when we have an open house in October or so, we could kind of, you know.
I didn't know about this.
I didn't know about the paint.
I didn't know.
I'll drive down there if somebody wants paint. I'll take them down there. I didn't know about it. So do we have any idea on what we want to do then as far as directing Ms. Wright on the residential portion of a grant application to bring back to us for approval?
Well, I mean, if the money's a deal, then I would say maximum 500. I would say that the match has to be 50%, not 100%. So I get 500 for 500. I'm concerned about the dollar amount. If I want to apply for a $500 grant, I got plenty of 250. And let's see what happens. I mean, maybe you won't get it. Maybe that's too much. But until we put something out there for people to actually see and do, we won't know. They may look at that and go, "That's awesome. I'll put 250 and they're double." I don't know. But I mean, I would be okay with that. I just think they need something in it. So, I mean, I have no issue with maximum of 500, and the person just makes it 50% from the house, from the residential paint only, a 50% match at this point in time.
And I think the county commission would be happy to see that, you know, because all of this has to go to them, you know, as part of our extension. So it would definitely clarify, you know, that.
And I wouldn't do any waive at this point. I would wait and see what the feedback is on this, and let's see. You may not get any. You may be creating an issue by even offering. If I can do that, and that would be my suggestion.
Are you comfortable with that, Commissioner?
Oh, yeah.
I think that sounds reasonable.
50%.
So if you can bring us back
50%
an application, like, you know, just like the commercials, so that we can review it and then vote on it at the next meeting. Okay.
I think if we started something like that, you're gonna have people that fall into it. There are gonna be people that have incentive to do it, and they're gonna take advantage of matching funds. Talking about giving them, that would be the people that, you know, get across the finish line. But there's another group of people that they're not gonna be up to the challenge of getting it started. Understanding how you get it started, even having the cash to get started. And I don't know how you would address them, because you gotta have some kind of control factor in there, because you know you just painting people's houses to you. So you gotta have some kind of control. But you gotta have, and I don't know what it is, you gotta have some kind of way to incentivize them to get out there and get started, fixing up their house, fixing up the neighborhood, making the neighborhood that they live in look better. I don't know how to do that.
The labor, you're talking labor, right, Ron? The labor part is the issue. I can have the money, but if I don't have anybody who can actually do it, then it never begins.
Right.
You got it.
Because we've just been talking about painting, but even if you go out there and start to paint, you gotta fix up cracks, you gotta replace chipped stone, you gotta, what do you call it, caulk the cracks in the wood, and all that before you even put the first roller of paint on there.
A lot of preliminary things before you get to the paintbrush.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the volunteer labor, the helpers, like Mr. Lee suggested, could maybe step forward and, help, because some people don't know how to do that. It's not something, if you've not ever really painted, you don't really understand how to do that, and it may create that community, getting people to know their neighbors. Mr. Gardner here lives over in a neighborhood that's currently CRA, and he started fixing his house up over there. He bought a little tiny wooden house that had been there for years, and he started fixing it up because he had this idea about what he was going to look like. And his whole neighborhood started painting and doing all kinds of stuff, and that whole neighborhood's like a showcase over there now because when he started doing things, then the other ones started. There's like a chain effect that occurred.
Start taking pride.
Yeah, and it really is, one of the nicest neighborhoods in the city now, and probably because you started fixing that little yellow house up that was sitting there.
Corner.
Yep, yep. So that's what we would love to see happen, in other areas of the city. So I think that's, a good place. So any more discussion on the residential grant?
Yeah, I think if we do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe pick out one house and I'm going to hard sell it to the owner or whatever. Hey, you can fix this up. There's help. These are the things that you need to do to get started. But there will be someone backing you up that will help you with paint and caulking and all of that kind of stuff. And let them know that's there.
Right.
And see if they will get interested. I mean, really interested. Not just, hey, I'll do it because we're talking about it. But I'm really interested in trying to fix my home up, make it a better home, to improve the value of it or whatever. But that's my thought, just do something hard sell it to them and see if we can get them to come and apply for the grant.
And another thing is maybe reaching out to some of the churches in the area. A lot of them have like men's groups that do pick volunteer projects and would come out and help with labor, because I've seen them do ramps, I've seen them do other things for people in the community. And so maybe just creating that network, so when a little extra help is needed with some of that expertise, we have someone that we can say, hey, you might want to contact these groups, they might come out and help you. So I think that could definitely be compiled, and then for larger repairs, we're trying to reach out to Habitat, and there's another one, Christians Concerned for the Community, that'll come out and do some larger repairs if someone has a true need or needs ADA accessibility or something like that. So, okay. So the last item is nonprofit facade grants, and the staff has a couple recommendations here, and you can share with us how you want or what you think might be acceptable to going forward to the county, to the CRA.
Yeah, I'm trying to streamline it into two alternatives, and the one being treat the nonprofit as a residential and award the same payment-only award, or if we identify our overall objectives of the CRA and the nonprofit can demonstrate how they meet our objectives, then they can be eligible for the same award as the commercial. And just generally, just based on our conversations, meetings, and documentation and whatnot, I've just outlined a few of those things that it seems like, are very important to us as far as moving forward and trying to achieve our goals. And so if you all would want to tweak those, that would be fine. Or, we could keep it simple and keep it a paint only. Or we can also, I think if somebody, like, for example, if we had a church that wanted to do a Boys and Girls Club and they needed a little help, that's certainly something that, could fit within those guidelines.
why wouldn't you treat the nonprofit the same as a commercial? Why wouldn't you do that? If what they're going to do on the face of their building achieve the same thing as a commercial, aren't we achieving what we want to do within the area?
Yeah.
Clean up the outside?
Yeah, well, the argument kind of is that it's a nonprofit, it's, about the tax base, and so, it's up to the discretion of the board if you all want to do it that way, or a lot of other communities set these criteria, and it's, the burden of the applicant to prove how they meet those objectives. We certainly could do it the same, but, in the past, that's kind of been this is on a smaller scale, of course, but, it's not contributing to the tax base, and so if it's not, then...
I'm talking about having them do what you're saying. I'm saying give them up to 5,000.
Yeah.
But you got to prove. They're meeting the deal.
Yeah.
Right, that you're serving the whole community and meeting a need within
If I've got
it.
a storefront, my nonprofit is a storefront out here, I should have availability to the same ones as the commercial, but I have to prove the criteria that you have in here. You're actually benefiting. You're a nonprofit benefiting for what I'm just talking. You would want to prove that what you're doing is beneficial. I wouldn't have an issue. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
I personally think that would be a good way to approach it, because some of these nonprofit organizations create a lot of, they address a lot of needs within our community, that we as a city can't necessarily address. And there's some talk and some hope that there'll be, maybe a teen center, or, a place where people can get help doing resumes and, getting services. And if that was done by a nonprofit, we'd want to be supportive of it, of whatever they were trying to do, signage or, lighting, if that's what they needed, things that would meet this criteria, or the facade, to make the facade look nice, because it's going to contribute to our community. It's going to make our district look better and be more presentable, and people are going to want to go there if it looks nice. So I kind of am of that mind. Do you have any opinion?
I think it should be treated the same. Once you get the criteria set in place, everybody the same way.
Anybody in the audience want to talk about nonprofits, about the grant process with the nonprofits? So what this would be is like whether it was a church or whether it was, I'm going to just give an example. The gentleman that has the after-school program for the kids on Main Street, Mr. Sammy Nelson, who has, is that his name, Mr. Nelson, who does that as a nonprofit and provides a service for our children. That would be something that would fall within the criteria of addressing a community need, without it being specific to a congregation or something. Like, you don't have to be a member of that church. And then they would qualify for that criteria, and then we could address their grant application based on that. If they wanted to put an awning out there, or better lighting, or a sign that says youth center, or whatever. So that's what the nonprofit sector, not about just dealing with a specific church or what they need, but really what they offer to the community as a whole, is kind of what I think you told me that other communities do within their CRA, is try to support those nonprofits regardless of what their background is, that are supporting the community and the position of the CRA.
You can use the same five criteria.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that way it's the same. So the business like here on Main Street, the business, which is next to Sammy's place, they both have to meet the same criteria to get the grant.
Right.
Because they're on the same deal. Yeah, I don't.
I agree with that also. I would like to see both
Right.
same criteria. As long as they're meeting, the criteria recommendation. Doesn't matter what, they're called or.
Okay.
It's a service that they render.
So then you would do a separate nonprofit application, and then they would just have to give us a description of how they serve the community, in addition to where they're located and what their thing is that they want to do for the facade, right? Okay.
I think for business owners, that would be really receptive to that, because that would incentivize them to do more things that maybe they've been putting it off for a couple of years, like painting the front of the store, or fixing a cracked window, or taking out some weeds and things on the edge of the building, something like that. But I think business owners would really respond to that, and those things would go well.
And it's a huge help to business owners. Wisteria Cottage on Main Street painted theirs and got a grant from the CRA, and she couldn't have done it without that matching money, because those big old buildings cost a lot to maintain. They're very expensive to maintain. The mural that's over here on the Springs Institute was a CRA grant, and so a mural or a facade, and it met that criteria, because as people drive into town, they're like, wow, it like catches their eye. And that mural, there's also a billboard on I-75 about an hour away, somewhere around Jasper. That's the exact same thing as what's on that wall. So it tells people to come to High Springs, which is the gateway to the Springs. So it gives us some PR that we don't have to pay for. It's part of what that grant money came from. So.
And that's one thing we might not have, also as part of this, we have these quilt murals also in addition to the mural that was just painted, but we actually have an Eagle Scout that's interested in doing a walking tour through our community. And so as part of this, we're on the Florida Quilt Trail. We have a few of these quilt murals that are already painted. A few need to be hung. We have one on the old school. So as part of that, that's the murals in here. Also, if somebody were to get an award to participate in that Florida Quilt Trail, quilt mural and whatnot, to have on their building, that, even though that might not be on the front, but it's still a visible facade, that was something that was added in under there as well. So.
Because that's going to draw people into town. These people get on tour buses and go all over the state to look at quilt murals. So it's something that's going to draw people into our town and help bring business. So yeah. So okay. And then the last thing on here that you have is the general guidelines, and that's pretty clear, I think, that they have to have the applications to you 2 weeks prior to the next meeting we have scheduled. And they can be done either in person or electronically, and then it comes to the CRA board for review and approval, and they can be here if they want to speak to us, of course, about their application. So I think that's pretty clear. So, do you want to set a fixed date for a CRA meeting each month that we would have, like the fourth Thursday of the month or whatever, so you would have it ongoing, and you would know up front, like we do with the commission meetings, instead of the oh yeah, we got to set another meeting? Do you think we should do that?
Well, since I've been, it seems like they kind of usually fall on the third Thursday. I know in the past they were the first Thursday, and because we have a number of things going on with the extension and the plan revision and whatnot, it just seems like it works out well that way. So in case we need another workshop in between or something, so I'm fine with the third Thursday. If you all are, we can also change it back to the first Thursday. But just based on the schedule, it just seems like it's worked out to where the spacing, is kind of gone that way. So, but yeah, we certainly can do that.
That works for me. I just think for administration of the grants, it would be easier for you if there's a specific day that we generally will meet, and we have a routine schedule, because then they know, okay, if it's the third Thursday, I got to have it in by the first Thursday, so you can prepare the agenda and get it ready.
We needed two calendars, so otherwise we
Okay.
That would be very helpful to us.
Okay, so I guess at the next meeting, we should vote on that then, that there would be a specific Thursday of the month that we would plan to have our regularly scheduled CRA meeting. Okay, so can we put that on the agenda then for the 19th, to set up a regularly scheduled meeting? Okay.
You'll need, like you said, you'll need that, because if you're gonna put in the stipulation, if there's a 2-week deal, the person putting it in needs to know that when it is, the next meeting is 6 weeks from now.
Right.
So, that's just from scheduling, and be fair to the people.
Right, exactly.
You need that.
And it will make,
It's 6 o'clock.
it'll make her job easier too, because she'll know when we're gonna meet, so.
Well, my turn.
Okay, is there anything else? Is there anything else you want to go over? Did we cover everything that we needed to cover? Okay. Does anybody in the audience have anything else that they would like to share? Attorney Walker, we talked about the next meeting, we're going to do the advisory board member, swear them in, and have the Sunshine Law tutorial for 30 minutes. And there's a couple of members that are already Sunshine Law through the plan board, so they don't necessarily need to sit through the tutorial. So they have another meeting, or at least one of them has another meeting, and wondered if they could get sworn in and then leave before the Sunshine tutorial, so that they can.
Oh, if they've already had it, then that's perfect.
Okay, and so, so what time, huh?
Swear it?
We'll do it.
Okay, so we'll do the swear-in at 5:30, and then the tutorial afterwards, or does the tutorial have to be outside the meeting?
The tutorial should be outside.
Okay, and you have to swear them in inside the meeting?
Right.
Okay.
So, can they just come to the meeting section then?
She has to be somewhere else
I see.
afterwards is the problem.
Okay. When are we going to do this?
Tentatively, we had scheduled for 5:30 for the Sunshine tutorial on the 19th, and then the meeting.
July?
Yeah, and then the meeting at 6.
We wouldn't have that on the calendar, so that looks like that works.
So if she can't be here for that, can she be sworn in at another meeting then if
We
she?
could do that, or we could convene the meeting and then adjourn it and then reconvene it later. Either way, whatever works.
Okay,
We're in now?
Well, you could convene the meeting at 5:30, swear them in,
and then,
kill it.
right. So we'll do that.
The tutorial,
We'll do that.
and then reopen the meeting at 6 o'clock.
Will that work?
Just to accommodate certain special people.
Okay, so will
Ron,
that
you got my
work?
back.
If we start our meeting promptly at 5:30, we swear people in, we'll adjourn it, we'll do the Sunshine tutorial, and then we'll restart the meeting at 6. Okay? That sound good? That's the
Good.
plan.
We'll do it.
Make sure you're here at 5:30, 5:28, okay? And
Madam
we'll
Chair,
do
just
it.
real quickly, I told Rich that I wanted to introduce him at the meeting tonight. He's
Okay.
a new partner in our law group for
Okay.
about the last 6 months. And I said, well, you need to come to the city, meet everybody and that sort of thing. And then I very promptly made him late this evening because I was coming out of Orlando. So I apologize for running late, both to you all and to Rich, introducing him and coming in late. So I apologize to that.
Okay. So you want to bring him up and
Just real
introduce him
quick,
to us?
Rich,
Come on, Rich.
started in St. Louis, Missouri, and then went to Springfield. He worked with the biggest law firm in the country for a little while, and then he went to work in Springfield, Missouri, and from there he decided that he wanted to get his tax degree at University of Florida, which is a really top tax program in the country. And so his wife came down here with 2 little girls, and they found out what Florida living is all about, and so we're not going back to Missouri. So we welcomed him into our group about 6 months ago, but pleased to have him as part of our team.
Okay.
Thank
And
you for having me here.
nice to meet you, and hopefully we'll see you. You might get stuck with us, you know.
He came
I'd be
down and
happy
saw
to.
the same thing that we saw and just couldn't leave, so welcome.
Right, right.
Thank you.
It's definitely warmer here than
Yes,
where you came from,
it-
so
it
nice
sure
to meet
is.
you, so thank you.
I was very happy to be here. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Okay.
Thanks,
Your
guys.
last name again?
Malt, M-A-L-T-E-R.
Okay, if nobody has anything else, then we can adjourn this workshop.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. It's adjourned. Scott's go.